To welcome you to our info session for our December 2021 Shaar HaShamayim Mission to Israel information session. And just to start, we're going to share a little bit of our plans with you. I'm going to first, we're going to mute everyone just to allow us to hear a little bit better. That seems to be the thing to do with Zoom now. And also, we're going to ask you, if you're up for it, to please turn on your cameras to allow us to see each other to create community. That's entirely voluntary, but it would be nice to see many or more of you. Why are we planning a mission, and why are we sitting here in the middle of a pandemic talking about traveling to Israel? So firstly, just to explain a little bit about why we're doing this and why we're here. The Shaar has a long history of being strongly connected to Israel, including missions, and I've heard many stories of meaningful trips that people took with Shaar HaShamayim over the years. And this is something that we've wanted to do for many years. For as long as I've been at the Shaar, for the last 16 years, we've been talking in one way or another about a mission, sometimes moving a little further in the planning process, sometimes not. But this seemed like the perfect thing to do in terms of focusing on the values of our community. Another reason why we're doing this is because we're forward-looking. That's what we do as people of faith, is to live with our hope and to embrace it as that's the reality of our lives. And I do firmly believe that this mission will happen, that we will be able to travel, and that the world will open up for us to travel in December of 2021. And I think we're seeing the slivers or the rays of hope that are coming through right now in these days, and will continue. We're entering a period of great hope, and we're going to embrace that spirit and say, not only do we know that this is going to end, but we know we're actually going to travel together. The world is going to open up. I also want to say parenthetically that in speaking to our experts in Israel and the travel agency that we're working with in Israel, which we'll get to in a moment, we asked them what's standing between us having a mission right now or not. If we would want to do a mission to Israel in January 2021 instead of December, if we want to do a mission to Israel next month, is it possible? And they said, absolutely. Just like you've learned to adapt when it comes to COVID with everything you do in life, we in Israel have learned to adapt also. The only problem would be travel. And so what's standing between us and being in Israel is not necessarily the end of a pandemic, but learning to live with a pandemic and doing a safe mission, whatever it is, whatever the reality of December 2021 is. We are committed to being in Israel together and being healthy there as well. And the final reason is because as our Shaar family and our sense of family has grown stronger and stronger, you know, personally, I feel with my own family, with my own nuclear family, you know, how do we come to know each other the best is when we hit the road together, when we get out of our routines, and when we go on road trips together, sometimes a little bit longer than my children and my wife might appreciate. But when we hit the road and drive for those hours and hours and hours, we come to know each other much better. And I feel as a Shaar family that we are ready for that step to take, to travel together, to know each other better, and to experience the world, not only our own sanctuary, our own synagogue, but to experience the world in a much more comprehensive way and hopefully inspiring way. In a moment, I'm going to share our PowerPoint to kind of show a little bit of what our plans are, what we're excited to show you. But I'll mention as well that we've been working with two excellent tour guides who are well known to many in our Montreal Jewish community as they've led tours for them. We're working with Liana Rothstein and Zalman Spivak, which may or may not be familiar names to you, and with the organization of Maven Tours, which is one of the tour agencies that they work with. We started with the tour guides. We've been in conversation for a number of months, and as well on the Shaar side, our director of community engagement, Robin Bennett, has been leading this effort as well. So just to show who's kind of behind this and that we have, you know, everything in place to launch this and to welcome you here this evening. And I'll mention there will be an opportunity for questions and answers, obviously, at the end. So here we go. We have one comment. Zalman is fantastic. So we're off to a good start. Thank you, Ronit and Avi, That's very important. You know, we also want to have your input, and we very much appreciate that. Okay, here we go. Sharing screen. Congregation Shaar HaShamayim, mission to Israel. This makes me feel very good just to see these words on the screen with that beautiful backdrop. So let's go. Okay. Here's our overview. 6-night stay in Jerusalem, 2 nights visiting the north, 3-night stay in Tel Aviv, and departure from Tel Aviv. A unique experience with the Shaar family, specially curated outings, tours, and speakers, deluxe accommodations, special tracks for families and teens. So just to speak for a moment to that, we are presenting a 12-day experience in Israel with an optional 4 or 5-day extension in the United Arab Emirates, making the most of the recent Abraham Accords and trying to see a little bit more of the region, and adding something to this tour that very few of us have ever seen, and certainly parts of the world that none of us have ever experienced. We are presenting, and we will at a future session present a 9-day version of this trip, which is geared towards younger families, for people who might want to bring 2, 3, 4 children, might want to bring a larger family, and the costs might be prohibitive. So we have presented, or we're putting together, a 9-day version with the pricing that reflects that, and hopefully that will accommodate or make it easier for some young families to join us for a substantial portion of this. When we say families and teens, our dream is to go as a community, as a Shaar family community trip, and that means everyone. We've talked about a Shaar legacy track, which is our Shaar family, which is those who may have experienced missions with us before, who have a long history at Shaar HaShamayim. We are also hoping to attract families with teens and to create special programming for those teens so they can have programming on their own or have experiences and bond together as a group. We are hoping to have young families. I believe the ages that we had posted, I think were 7 and up, to allow that families and to create programming that might appeal specifically to those families and allow them to gel as well and all together as a community. Let's go on to the next slide. Jerusalem. So the first 6 days in Jerusalem, and when we say Jerusalem, of course, as a small country in Israel, we mean much more than Jerusalem. What we're showing you, what we're presenting here, is part of our proposal. We do not, at this point, 12 months in advance, have a finalized itinerary. However, we do have a comprehensive itinerary that once we see the extent of the registration, we'll be able to finalize. Once we see what our needs are, we'll be able to finalize. But just to give a taste of what is on that proposed, and by proposed, I don't mean a one-pager. It's sitting in front of me. It's about 17, 18 pages long. Our Journey to Israel proposed Shaar HaShamayim itinerary. So visit the Knesset. So when we visit the Knesset, many tours visit the Knesset, but when Shaar HaShamayim visits the Knesset, we call our friend Michal Cutler-Wunsch, who is a member of Knesset. And when I told her that we are planning a Shaar mission to Israel in December 2021, her response was, "I'm so excited, tour of the Knesset 2021." And so to receive a tour from a member of Knesset who is deeply connected to Congregation Shaar HaShamayim will be a unique Shaar experience. Tour of the Old City, including the Muslim Quarter. And I added that including the Muslim Quarter because that's where I lived for a certain period of my life when I was studying in a yeshiva there. And one of the things that gives me great pleasure is sharing not only where I was, but also some of the back alleyways or some of the hidden gems or a rooftop tour or some shortcuts that most tour guides don't know about. Because a little confession, one of my great joys is being a tour guide. I don't like to compete with the hired tour guides, but when I was a student in yeshiva, as one of the few English-speaking students, I was called upon. I almost said hired. I wasn't paid, but I was called upon to serve as a tour guide for some of the American and Canadian tourists who were visiting the Old City as a fundraiser for the yeshiva. They would give a donation at the end, and so going back to my roots, I love leading people through those back alleyways and showing some of the hidden gems of Jerusalem. We'll show one a little bit later on, and you can read for the rest. We're speaking about relationships that we have with the Shalom Hartman Institute, with other organizations in Israel, and utilizing those connections to provide a very high-end and inspiring experience. And I want to highlight Chesed Project, because it's important to me, and I know many of us, that when we go, we're not going just to see, but going to contribute in some meaningful way. So that will be something that we not just land and do, but that we prepare for in one form or another. I have a number of ideas in mind, but we'll sharpen those ideas over the next many months. So after, and Jerusalem, of course, I mentioned not just Jerusalem, that includes seeing Gush Etzion and meeting with some very interesting people in those areas, going down to the Negev. That's all based in Jerusalem. We say Jerusalem, we mean really the center of the country. Then from Jerusalem, we go up, heading north, which is my personal Gan Eden, my personal Garden of Eden. I love the Galil. I love going up to the Galilee, seeing regional wineries, going to the beautiful places that are there. Going to the second to the bottom on the list is the Agmon Chula. The Chula in the Chula Valley is a bird sanctuary, a world-renowned bird sanctuary, which when we're going in December, late December, is at its most beautiful, with all the migratory birds that stop by in that place. That's for those who have been, that was a bird sanctuary that was created as a way of bringing these migratory birds to one place. Instead of allowing them to decimate all the farms in the surrounding area, they created a sanctuary for them, which both saved the agriculture in the area and also created the most beautiful and scenic experience in Israel. And once we go north, then we're back to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv will both be a beautiful experience and also conclude the first segment of our trip. We're talking about relationships that we have with, for example, Rachel Korazim, who's become a very popular teacher in our community, to join her for a poetry walk in the city, where so much of that poetry was written in Tel Aviv, as well as many other special experiences, including Shabbat in Tel Aviv, which is also a very special and unique a treat to have, as it's something I've only discovered in the last number of years. My Israel experience was focused on Jerusalem, and in the last probably 5-6 years, my eyes have been opened up to the beauty of Tel Aviv and to the spirituality that's found in Tel Aviv as well. On to the next slide. Okay, here we go. Here are 6 photographs, which are not necessarily connected, but they are in my mind. So I want to talk through these photographs because I think they give a little bit of an insight into what we are going to experience. Well, we're going to start at the top left with that group photograph, both because that's a natural place to start, and also because that means that going around the final photograph will be Abby and a bunch of glasses of empty wine glasses, which I think tells a very interesting story. So we'll get to that in a moment, but this is what we're going to experience in Israel. So the top left photograph is in the town in the south, a Bedouin town in the south called Lakia, or as the locals, the Bedouins, call it Lagia. And that family that we're sitting with is a family of a friend of ours from Montreal. Some may know Amal El-Sana, who is a very significant and impressive leader in Montreal. Look her up if you don't know her. Google her name. She runs an organization called ICANN. And she introduced us to her family. We went to visit, and we're so taken and moved. We said, we have to share this experience of this village that has produced intellectual strength, this village that has produced empowered women leaders from this beautiful village. And her father and I had a very, very strong connection and promised not only that we would come back, but we would bring friends. And so here we are. They've agreed to host us in one form or another, and we will incorporate that into our itinerary. Moving over one to the right, if you can see my cursor, this is Hanukkah, and I'm now showing donuts. This is in the Kadosh Bakery in Jerusalem. If any of you on this call have been to Jerusalem with us, for sure we have taken you there and have shared some of the delicious food. And that's part of what Abby and I are looking forward to do, is to sharing all that we've discovered, or so much of what we've discovered in terms of the culinary excellence of Jerusalem. I don't know if this speaks to any of you, but the leftmost donut, or sufganiya, I should say, in this photograph is a chalva flavored donut. I can't see the faces that you're making to that, but I love it. And that's something I dream of. Now, once I had it a few years ago on Hanukkah in Israel, every Hanukkah, no donut matches up to it. I dream of the Kadosh Chalva Sufganiya. To the right of that, and all this to say is that you'll be well fed and buy the finest foods that we can find. To the right of that is the Kotel Hakatan. That is called the small Kotel. Many are familiar with the larger Western Wall, but fewer know that the Western Wall actually extends much further into the Muslim quarter. And so one goes from the bustling Western Wall, which is chaotic at times, to a very quiet, contemplative place with the exact same stones, but a little bit off the beaten path. And I spent, as a student, I spent many hours a week in study and meditation and prayer in that space. And it's a very meaningful and kind of a hidden place that I would never go to Jerusalem without visiting or without bringing friends there. So I hope that you're there to join us. The bottom right, of course, is our dear friend Michal Kotler-Wunsch, who is a Chavirat Knesset, a member of Knesset. And what this photograph represents, at least for me, are friends in Israel, because we have many friends in Israel. Shaar HaShamayim has many friends of Israel, and we will make sure that we connect with all of them, whether it's Gil Troy, Michal, Shauna Goodman, many of the others who are very excited to learn of this mission and who would not think about visiting Israel without visiting them. I'll mention Connie and Chuck Solomon as well, who are also very excited. Chuck being a past president, honorary president of the Shaar. A little bit to the left of that, the bottom center photograph is our family with our friend Shuit and her two daughters. And Shaar HaShamayim, about a year ago or a little bit more, it's hard to tell time in the COVID era, to tell how much time has passed, but we have undertaken to sponsor this family as refugees to come to Canada. It's a process that takes many years. Her brother lives in Canada. We know him. They are refugees from Eritrea, which is right next to Ethiopia. They have a very harrowing life story of how they've left Africa and found refuge in Israel, but are looking to relocate and legally need to relocate somewhere. And there's a major effort underway, including by many in Canada, to try to find a permanent home for them. And we have sponsored them. We have initiated many months ago a formal sponsorship process, which takes many years, to bring this beautiful family to Canada and to Montreal specifically. I'll mention that one of their daughters' names is Jerusalem, which is a form of Yerushalayim, because out of tribute to the country that has taken them in, and we'll be meeting them, and that also represents the chesed aspect of this trip of doing good. Now, finally, we get to the last picture, which is Abby drinking wine. And I just want to share, maybe I'll share a little bit, if you'll indulge me, just a brief story. Maybe not so brief, but a medium-sized story, which is a number of years ago, we spent a few months in Israel, and our children, our eldest children, were kindergarten age. And we needed to find a kindergarten or a preschool that would take them. And so I called around, and it was just a few months. It was 2 months in the winter. And we asked, will anybody take our kids for 2 months to give them an Israeli preschool experience? And the answer we got time and time again is no, we have no room, we have no space, we can't absorb your children just for 2 months in the middle of the school year. Finally, as a last-ditch effort, I called this school, somebody recommended to me, and the head of the school's name was Udi. And I spoke to Udi, and I spoke in Hebrew, in my American accented Hebrew, and I said, hi, my name is Adam, and I want to send my kids to your school. He said, in makom. There's no space in our school. What a ridiculous request. You can't put your kids in our school for 2 months. And I kind of begged him, and I said, please, it's important to us. My daughter Avia she was 5 years old at the time, so going back 9 years. And he said, your daughter's name is Avia? And I said, yeah. He said, my daughter's name is Avia. So we connected on that because our daughters have unique names and the same name. And then the conversation turned a little bit friendlier. And then a minute later, he said, Rega, hold on a second. Your name is Adam Shaar? I said, yeah. He said, did you study at Yeshivat Chovei Torah in New York? I said, yeah. He said, it's me, it's Udi. And it turns out that we were classmates together for a few months. He had to go back to Israel because of visa issues and because his wife was expecting, and they had some issues staying in the United States. And he went on to a path of leading a preschool in Israel. And we reconnect in this way. He said, of course, we'll make room for your daughters in our school. Our daughters went to our school. It was a very beautiful reunion of over many years. And all this to show we've created a beautiful friendship. His brother is a wine expert in Jerusalem. And when we were connected to his brother and through the family, his brother opened up a wine tasting store or a wine tasting bar in Jerusalem. And we spent a beautiful evening there. So it's a hole in the wall. Many of these things, they come and go in Jerusalem. But I wanted to just share with you some of the things that we've discovered through the relationships, through the connections that we've made over the years. And we want to share these beautiful places with you. So those are the Encounter Israel as never before. Friends, food, places, chesed, family, and a little bit of good wine too. Our accommodations are going to be the best possible accommodations, the most beautiful, the David Citadel, the Kfar Bloom, Hilton Tel Aviv. These are the standards that we are working on. We have rooms already reserved in all of these places, and are exploring other options as well to make sure that we have the best quality for the best price. But as for now, we are and just wanted to present this to show the kind of the caliber trip that we are offering. And a full Israeli breakfast is included daily, which are enough calories that for an entire day's intake. But just to let you know, there's going to be delicious breakfast daily. Here we are to the pricing. I'm going to leave the screen up for a moment to let everybody take a look at that. And if you have questions, we will be happy to answer them afterwards. I'll do a 10 count to let everyone read the prices, write them down. Okay. Fantastic. What's included in these prices? Transfers from the airports, Israeli breakfasts, 7 lunches, 7 dinners over the course of these 12 days, entrance fees, of course, a luxury coach bus, licensed English-speaking tour guides, and only the best, snacks and water on the bus, of course, and excitement and inspiration for all, which is worth the price of admission. What's not included are flights, travel insurance, and select lunches and dinners, which is not, the latter is not a way of saving money, but a way of allowing people to explore Israel on their own, because part of it is finding a good restaurant to go to for lunch, or walking around this area and grabbing a bite to eat, as many Israelis do. We did not include flights in the itinerary and the price. We are open to organizing group options, but we'll need to hear from you later on. We have been told that the current practice is from North America not to include flights, because many people have their own considerations in terms of points or alliances that they like to fly with, and so we'll leave that part up to you. Moving on, following this amazing experience in Israel that we have together, here we are in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, for 4 nights, 5 days, observation from the 148th floor of the Burj Khalifa. I don't know why we can only get up to the 104. I think it's 160 something flights. I'll see if we can get us higher, but that's what the itinerary offered us, at least 148. And just having a first class, indulgent, eye-opening experience in United Arab Emirates. And I'll let you read for yourself what some of the exciting things that we can do, and then the pricing for this experience. And if anyone, by the way, wants a copy of this PowerPoint, please be in touch with Robin. We'll have her contact information on one of the last slides, and we'll be happy to share this with you. The details for that extension are right here, including kosher meals, English-speaking guides, only the best. And once again, that does not include you will be coordinating your own flights, or should there be enough of a desire, we'll look into group options together. Okay, moving on, almost there, we're almost finished. Next steps, we will be opening registration in February 2021. And we're doing that we're not opening registration right now for a number of reasons. One being that the itinerary is still a work in progress. And for that reason, also the pricing is just there as a reference point. We are doing our best to make sure that the pricing is as reasonable as possible, and we are working with the itinerary as well to make sure that we're not leaving anything out that we'll turn around a few months from now and say, oh, I wish I would have included that. So we're spending many, many, many hours working through a detailed itinerary for you, and we'll be ready with final pricing, which will be similar to what we've shown, but within a ballpark, and we'll be opening registration. For more details, and as well, what we would ask to indicate your interest, please contact Robin, because we can only move forward really with confidence once we know that we have a significant level of interest. We have set the pricing, the tour agency has set the pricing for us based on 80 participants. I won't be humble or secretive with my ambitions, is that I hope we have more than 200 people on this trip as a Shaar family together. That's my dream, is that we take Israel by storm and that we are a significant presence there and with each other. But we need to know your interest. So if you'll please just drop a note to Robin, send her an email, and let her know how many people you are, and as well, if you fit into any of the other categories of family with teens or with young family, to please indicate that as well. This is open to all. One does not have to be a Shaar Shamayim member. However, priority, should there be space issues, obviously priority will be given to our Shaar family. And finally, wanted to share this beautiful picture with you. This was taken on the Federation Mega Mission. I believe it was 2018, in May 2018. And we had an amazing time. And after one of the sessions, we asked the members of Shaar Shamayim to stay back for a group photograph. This was taken just maybe an hour before Shabbat. And I just wanted to share some of that energy with you, because that's the energy that we're going to be bringing to this trip. Those smiles that you see were not just there for the picture and will not be just there for a moment, but we're going to create memories that last a lifetime. So I just wanted to show you this, and I feel the impulse to wave back at all the people waving at me in that, or waving at us in that photograph, but just to share that beauty with you. Lehitraot. See you in Israel.